I gotta admit, sometimes with Fate and just the names different characters get, it can get a little ridiculous and hard to keep up with, like Ushiwakamaru. No, I can't say that. We're gonna call her Ushi. Like, it's just sometimes the names can get a little too out there, even for anime for me. But, I mean, that's what happens when you have all these different historical characters coming into one series. I guess that's just something you gotta deal with. But, once again, Fate, Grand Order, very enjoyable episode. I heard some people going into this episode thought it felt a little fast-paced, or there was a lot of like exposition and info dumping, and I actually was expecting a lot of being like, okay, this feels like a lot of a slow burn or a little too much jam-packed, but it honestly felt like pretty much every episode that wasn't extremely action-oriented that we've seen with Grand Order to date. It was a pretty damn enjoyable episode, especially seen by the little bits of action we got towards the end, and just some of the characterization like we got with our main character Fujimaru, and just some of the other servants and things like that. I thought it was, I mean, if you've enjoyed it up to this point, I don't see why it would personally feel too rushed or out of place, but I guess that's just me. But I have to say, there was some pretty decent humor in this episode, while also bringing up some questions I didn't know I had, primarily towards Ishtar and just the idea of seemingly almost like a split personality kind of fighting for control based on if the sun goes down or something like that, as you can see, whether it's more in Rin's body or if it's more into the goddess Ishtar's body. I thought that was a interesting curveball that I did not see coming. Even though their personalities seemingly, like when the hair kind of changes or the personalities are seemingly swapping, it doesn't feel all that different, but there is some slight behaviors that are different, and to see how she was ultimately summoned and how they took over a body of one, and it kind of created a new personality, a new entity, that's just something you gotta appreciate with Fate and its magical mechanics. It's something that totally makes sense, but also, unless you have experience with the game, sometimes you may not clue into that and just say, oh, this is a different property, maybe it is just a character that looks like, say, Rin or something like that. It's just always nice. It's like the good kind of fan service, right? It's the type of fan service for people who have experience with past Fate entries or games or things like that. You look at that character and say, man, that's awesome to see them in a different series, and then they find really cool ways to incorporate them, like ritual summoning and goddesses merging with characters. It's just a really cool thing overall, and I appreciate that little twist, and I really like seeing how after the episode is basically about to wrap up and, Fujimaru thanks Ishtar because she did this insane blast to stop the skeletons. I like how it does transition to her other hair color. It's just like those little mysteries. They're not overly important, but it's enough to keep you on the edge of your seat being like, huh, I wonder where future arcs are going to go with Fate Grand Order. It's just the little details that help make an episode a lot more memorable if you didn't have them. But you have like just so many cute moments throughout this episode. Some of my favorites had to be with Anna, and just the idea that she gets so excited because like the reward of bringing Gilgamesh's tablet back that he kind of wrote a dream on that might be able to predict the future. It's like 20 silvers or something like that, and she gets so excited, she packs up, but they're not leaving until the next day. I just love those very simple moments that are so anime, so humorous, and it's like, eventually we're gonna be having our heart sting from getting stabbed so much, so you gotta appreciate those moments while you do have them, and the characters aren't fearing for their life, because eventually they're going to. Once again, you get to see just how good of a leader Gilgamesh is. Like, he still has that bite, which is kind of, he will sort of insult you to your face, but he definitely is looking after his people. Like, the idea that 30% of their men were either wounded or like, they're not doing as hot as they would like, but it was all to calculations, 30%, we expected that. And one soldier is trying to go back into the front lines, and he's like, what good is a wounded soldier gonna do? Pretty much saying, you're useless, go get some rest. It's both a compliment because he's helping them, making sure they don't mindlessly die, but it also is that Gilgamesh bite that you have to appreciate. And just, like, some of his dialogue is just, it's not trying to be a joke, but it's naturally funny because it's Gilgamesh. Okay, so you wrote on this tablet, but you don't kind of remember what you wrote on it? Why the hell would I have to remember what I wrote from a dream? Like, come on, just go get me the damn tablets. Like, that is such a perfect line for a character like him, and just, I love how nonchalantly the characters will just kind of look at each other, kind of shrug their shoulders, being like, that's our king for you. That's what's so great about Grand Order, is like, it's getting to some serious, some mystery and things like that, but I just love the general interactions in this kingdom before everything completely goes to shit, because it's going to at some point. Though I will say, probably my favorite part of this episode was seeing the old man come back, and man, he's apparently controlling the underworld down there. I like how Fujimaru gives man bread, and now he gets to basically not die in the underworld when he gets sucked into it. There's some crazy things going on in this series, but you gotta appreciate, I guess you gotta keep a loaf of bread on you at all times in case some homeless guy is hungry. It may save you a one-way trip to the underworld and not be able to come back out. And something that was probably, a lot of times when you see like CGI mobs, they're pretty jarring, and even though the skeleton mob wasn't overly like beautiful to look at, it surprisingly wasn't that jarring. I think because it was more of a night scene, it didn't look as out of place as it would have if it was lit up and you could tell they were mostly a 3D mob. Something you do gotta appreciate. So I was glad it wasn't just a bunch of like berserk looking 3D kind of walking around. Nice little bonus for having to have a bunch of skeletons get blasted. We're seeing like a lot of travel, a lot of just development for characters like Fujimaru and just the servants and things like that. And that could be easily something that a lot of people find dry and boring, nothing that they're really overly invested in, but I'm all about that stuff. I'm all about just getting an episode where it's just a character like Fujimaru sitting down and talking, discussing what came before, what he wants to come after, and just maybe the worries or the happy thoughts he currently has. I love that because it gives you human touches to these characters. That scene with him and Ushi just kind of discussing how, like, back from his world, there's songs that he would sing that were basically stories from her perspective, and just the idea that she's only had her brother really put trust into her and believe in her, and now this guy's doing the same thing. Of course, they're doing kind of like the romantic undertones that anime is known for. Cute girl kind of getting flustered, or he's getting flustered because of her, but there's actually some nice human bonding moments between that and how she was trying to devote herself to him, and he's like, I'm not your master, but I can be your friend. Like, those are the little moments that, even though the episodes aren't solely based on those, it's something that I really, really dig, because yeah, the action in this show has been spectacular every single episode that we've gotten any glimpses of it. However, if it was just a lot of explosions and just goddesses and gods fighting, maybe visually it'd be interesting, but we wouldn't give a damn about the characters past, well, Gilgamesh, because we already have a good connection to him from past entries. And that's what I'm loving, is that it just feels like we're building up to some crazy stuff. We're going to build up to something that maybe will be depressing, or just it will put a lot of lives on the line. And even if it's like the first half of this anime, the first core is more of like, yeah, sometimes it gets intense, but there is a lot of this downtime. I dig that. I really dig it, because it gives you a human component that Fate, it strives at when it really does handle it. Because those scenes when a servant and a master can sit down and talk, or in this case, just the general folk in a kingdom, even though they have demonic beasts at their doorsteps, they have such a good ruler that they can literally just go to the market not fearing about what's behind door number 1. This isn't a life or death situation just yet, and I'm really glad that we have, how many times now, just have those moments where characters can be a little more tropey, a little more gimmicky, and not fear for their life. And based on what characters like Fujimaru have gone through and how he literally is humanity's last hope, it's not that he's the best master or the most talented, he's all they have left, and that's why he has to do anything and everything that he can do. I think characters like him definitely deserve a break where they can feel a little more at peace before everything once again goes to absolute chaos. That's why Grand Order is doing quite well. Production's on point. The sound effects, the voice acting, that's on point. The music, damn good, but what do you expect for a Fate anime? The soundtracks, when are they ever lackluster? Never. However, I love these types of episodes. Like, obviously, I'm not jumping out of my chair like I would with last week or any of the amazing set pieces that just are so like, look at that animation, look at the action and how all the mechanics are kind of functioning together. And even though we got a little bit of a glimpse of that within this episode with Ishtar kind of getting roped in, literally, and getting kind of tied up, being like, hey, tell me what you know, most of this episode, like 80%, was built on just character dialogue, walking, and simple and comfy moments, but once again, I am eating it all up. I literally could have another 2 episodes, no action, just characters walking, talking, learning about what happened with Gilgamesh and just the prophecies and things like that, some gaudy stuff, and I'd be having a fun time. Maybe not everyone would, but I definitely would, because I love that type of stuff. I don't care what an anime episode delivers, as long as it's interesting. And based on some of the dialogue, the development, and just fleshing out characters like Fujimaru, it doesn't feel like anyone that we've really had a chance to focus in on and have conversations with is all that one note. Obviously, some characters are a lot more fleshed out and interesting than others. You can look at Gilgamesh as a clear example, than some of the serpents that we've met. Sure, but they all do get their moment, it feels like, and that's what makes these little moments really, really special. And if this was like a one core, we would just have to rush to get to the next set piece, the big action thing, and we would only get really good development probably with maybe Fujimaru and maybe Gilgamesh, not the other characters. So I do appreciate that this 2 core is going the route of giving everyone their chance to shine. I could completely understand if this isn't that exciting of an episode for many people, but for me it definitely is. I love exposition, I love learning about characters, and the little bits of action we did get was once again pretty damn well animated, and just the goddesses and the gods, they are damn powerful. Even if they're at a weakened state, they're still damn powerful. And if you are a general civilian, you want to just push your ass away from there. One of the little details I did like is how Ishtar just doesn't take into consideration, blows up the demonic beast, and then says, hey, I want a reward, and pretty much is stealing from them, even though she wouldn't be like, well, I'm not actually stealing from them, but would you do it for free? Well, I wish she wouldn't have asked that, right? It's like those little moments really are the highlights of these episodes. And it's great that it's not just like one little moment that's a highlight, it's like a bunch of smaller ones. So even if this episode wasn't exhilarating because of like, holy shit, did someone almost die, it was more of like all those little moments make an episode like this quite special, and I'm digging Fate Grand Order as always. But what is everyone feeling for either anime originals or people who have experience with this storyline in the game? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.